The silence in the courtroom was a physical thing, pressing down on me, stealing the air from my lungs. He had taken everything: the house, the car, the savings, everything meticulously built over 15 years of marriage, now gone with the stroke of a pen. He stood across the room, a smug smirk playing on his lips, confident in his victory. He had no idea what he was really taking. If you have a sister you would protect with your life, subscribe now. My name is Maya, and my life as I knew it ended the day my husband, David, decided he wanted a younger model. We had built a life together, brick by painstaking brick. We started with nothing, 2 kids fresh out of college with more dreams than dollars. 15 years later, we had a beautiful home in the suburbs, 2 cars in the garage, and a comfortable life. Or so I thought. The first sign was subtle, a change in his routine. Late nights at the office, hushed phone calls taken in another room. I chalked it up to stress, the pressures of his demanding job. I was wrong. One evening, he sat me down at the dining room table, the same table where we had shared countless meals, celebrated anniversaries, and made plans for the future. He told me he was leaving. For another woman, a woman barely old enough to drink. The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs, leaving me reeling. But the affair wasn't the worst of it. He wanted everything. He claimed I hadn't contributed to the marriage, that everything we had was due to his hard work. He twisted the truth, manipulated the facts, and with the help of his high-powered lawyer, systematically dismantled our life. I was devastated, heartbroken, and terrified. I had given him the best years of my life, supported him through thick and thin, and this was how he repaid me. I could feel the anger simmering beneath the surface, a slow burn that threatened to consume me. But I kept my composure. I stayed silent. I knew that any outburst, any sign of weakness, would only be used against me. I watched him take everything, piece by piece, feeling like I was drowning, gasping for air. He thought he had won. He thought he had broken me. He had no idea what was coming. I acted defeated, played the part of the grieving wife. But beneath the surface, a plan was forming, a plan for revenge, a plan to make him regret the day he ever crossed me. The person I trusted most was one of them.
The courtroom was just the beginning. The smug look on David's face as he walked away with everything seared itself into my memory. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, heard his lies, felt the sting of his betrayal. The house was gone, sold to some young couple eager to start their lives, oblivious to the pain and memories contained within those walls. The car, a practical sedan we had chosen together for its safety and reliability, was now his, a symbol of his newfound freedom. My savings, painstakingly accumulated over years of careful budgeting, vanished into his accounts, swallowed up by legal fees and his mistress's lavish lifestyle. I tried to reason with him, to appeal to the man I thought I knew, the man I had loved. I sent emails, wrote letters, even attempted to speak to him in person, but he refused to see me, his assistant acting as a buffer, a gatekeeper protecting him from my pleas. Each rejection fueled the fire within me, hardening my resolve. I consulted with lawyers, hoping to salvage something, anything, from the wreckage of my marriage. But the legal system seemed to be rigged in his favor. His lawyer, a shark in a suit, expertly twisted the facts, exploiting every loophole, painting me as a gold digger, a woman who had contributed nothing to the marriage. I felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare with no escape. My friends tried to comfort me, offering words of encouragement, inviting me out for drinks, but their sympathy felt hollow, a band-aid on a gaping wound. They couldn't understand the depth of my pain, the utter devastation I felt at losing everything I had worked so hard for. The weight of injustice pressed down on me, crushing my spirit, stealing my joy. I lost my appetite, my clothes hung loosely on my frame, my eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. I was a shell of my former self, a ghost haunting the edges of my own life. But even in my darkest moments, a flicker of hope remained, a tiny spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. I knew I couldn't give up. I wouldn't let him win. I started documenting everything, every phone call, every email, every legal document. I meticulously recorded every detail of his betrayal, gathering evidence, building my case. I knew it wouldn't be easy. He had power, money, and influence on his side, but I had something he didn't, the burning desire for justice. I learned that his new girlfriend, Tiffany, was flaunting their relationship all over social media, posting pictures of expensive gifts, lavish vacations, and romantic dinners. The sight of their happiness, built on the ruins of my life, sent a surge of anger through me, a white-hot rage that threatened to consume me. But I controlled myself. I channeled my anger into my plan, refining it, perfecting it, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. I discovered that David had been making questionable financial decisions at his company, engaging in practices that could land him in serious trouble. It was a risky gamble, a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, but I was willing to do whatever it took to bring him down. The anger was a constant companion, a simmering undercurrent that fueled my every action. I focused on the details, meticulously planning each step, ensuring that every move was calculated and precise. I began to see his arrogance as a vulnerability, his confidence as a weakness. He thought he was untouchable, that he could get away with anything. That was his mistake. The lawyer was in on it too. They were both laughing at me. The day I found out the lawyer was in on it too, something inside me shattered. It wasn't just the money, the house, the betrayal. It was the feeling of being utterly and completely alone, a pawn in their cruel game. I had gone to his office, desperate for answers, hoping for some glimmer of hope. He had feigned sympathy, offering me a cup of coffee, listening patiently as I poured out my heart. Then he leaned back in his chair, a chilling smile spreading across his face, and confessed. He and David had been planning this for months, meticulously crafting their strategy, anticipating my every move. He reveled in my pain, enjoying my vulnerability, confirming that I was nothing more than a plaything to them. The room started to spin, my vision blurred. The ceramic mug slipped from my trembling hands, shattering on the polished floor, mirroring the destruction of my life. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to inflict the same pain they had inflicted on me, but I was frozen, paralyzed by shock and disbelief. I stumbled out of his office, blindly navigating the crowded streets, the sounds of the city fading into a dull roar. I ended up at the park, sitting on a bench overlooking the lake, watching the ducks glide effortlessly across the water, their lives seemingly simple and carefree. I envied them. I envied their lack of awareness, their ignorance of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the world. I sat there for hours, lost in my thoughts, replaying the events of the past few months, searching for answers, for some explanation for the cruelty I had endured. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the park, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The air grew cold, a chilling reminder of the emptiness that had consumed me. I considered giving up, ending it all, escaping the pain, the humiliation, the crushing weight of despair. But then I thought of my sister, Sarah, the woman who had always been there for me, who had supported me through every crisis, who had believed in me even when I had lost faith in myself. I knew that ending my life would only inflict more pain on her, that it would be a betrayal of the bond we shared. I owed her more than that. I owed myself more than that.
As darkness descended, a new feeling began to stir within me, a cold, hard resolve that replaced the despair. It wasn't hope, not exactly, but something stronger, something more powerful. It was a refusal to be defeated, a determination to fight back. I would not let them break me. I would not let them win. I stood up from the bench, my legs shaky, but my resolve firm. I walked out of the park, leaving behind the shadows and the despair. I had a plan to make. The first step was to disappear. I packed a small bag with essential clothes and toiletries, withdrew the last of my savings from the bank, and left a note for Sarah, explaining that I needed time to myself, that I would be in touch soon. I turned off my phone, severing all ties to my old life. I drove to a small town several hours away, a place where no one knew me, where I could start over. I found a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, a place that offered anonymity and solitude. I spent the next few days poring over documents, reviewing financial statements, searching for any evidence that could help me expose David's illicit activities. I contacted a private investigator, a woman with a reputation for being ruthless and discreet, and hired her to dig into David's past, to uncover any secrets he was hiding. I knew it was a long shot, but I was willing to try anything. I also started learning about law, spending hours in the local library, researching legal precedents, studying corporate fraud, familiarizing myself with the intricacies of the legal system. The more I learned, the more confident I became. I realized that David wasn't as clever as he thought he was, that his arrogance had blinded him to his own vulnerabilities. His biggest weakness? He underestimated me. He thought I was just a naive housewife, incapable of fighting back. He was wrong. He had awakened a sleeping giant, a force of nature that was about to unleash its fury. I may have lost everything, but I still had my mind, my determination, and my burning desire for justice. And that was enough. The turning point came when the private investigator called me with a lead. She had uncovered evidence that David had been embezzling money from his company for years, using offshore accounts to hide his ill-gotten gains. It was the break I had been waiting for. I knew that exposing his crimes would not only ruin him financially, but also destroy his reputation and land him in jail. I felt a surge of satisfaction, a sense of vindication that washed over me like a tidal wave. The plan was coming together. I was ready to strike. I would become his worst nightmare.
The evidence in my hands felt like a loaded weapon. I knew I had to be careful. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. I started by creating a secure email address, using a virtual private network to mask my location and protect my identity. I would need a way to communicate with the authorities anonymously without revealing my involvement. Next, I meticulously compiled all the evidence I had gathered, organizing it into a clear and concise narrative. The financial records, the private investigator's report, the social media posts, every detail was carefully documented and cross-referenced. I even hired a digital forensics expert to analyze David's computer and phone, uncovering deleted emails and hidden files that further implicated him in the embezzlement scheme. The expert also helped me to trace the lawyer's involvement, uncovering a series of secret communications between him and David that proved they were colluding to defraud me. I smiled. I played their game, but I was recording everything. I knew the authorities wouldn't act on my word alone. I needed irrefutable proof. So I decided to set a trap. I created a fake online profile, posing as a potential investor interested in David's company. I sent him an email, praising his success and expressing my desire to invest a large sum of money. He took the bait immediately, responding enthusiastically and inviting me to a private meeting at a high-end restaurant. I knew this was my chance. I arranged for a hidden camera to be installed in the restaurant's private dining room, capturing every word and action. I also hired a professional audio technician to enhance the recording, ensuring that every detail was crystal clear. During the meeting, I subtly steered the conversation towards David's financial dealings, probing him about his offshore accounts and his investment strategies. He, eager to impress me, readily revealed his secrets, boasting about his clever schemes and his ability to evade detection. He didn't realize that every word he spoke was being recorded, every lie he told was being documented. He thought he was in control, but he was walking straight into my trap. The tension was almost unbearable. My heart pounded in my chest, my palms were sweaty, but I forced myself to remain calm and composed. I played the part of the naive investor perfectly, nodding attentively and asking all the right questions. I even pretended to be impressed by his arrogance and his greed, fueling his ego and encouraging him to reveal even more. The meeting lasted for over 2 hours, and by the time it was over, I had everything I needed. A complete confession, captured on video and audio, proving his guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. The next step was to expose the truth. I anonymously sent the evidence to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the government agency responsible for regulating the financial markets. I also leaked the story to a local news reporter, providing him with all the details and encouraging him to investigate David's company. The reporter, eager to break a big story, jumped at the opportunity, launching a full-scale investigation that quickly uncovered a web of corruption and deceit. The walls were closing in. I knew it was only a matter of time before David's world came crashing down around him. I watched from a distance, carefully monitoring the situation, making sure that everything went according to plan. There were a few close calls. David's lawyer, sensing that something was wrong, started asking questions, trying to uncover the source of the leaks. He even hired a private investigator to track me down, but I was always one step ahead of him, carefully covering my tracks and maintaining my anonymity. I knew that if they discovered my involvement, they would stop at nothing to silence me, but I was prepared to take that risk. The thought of finally getting justice, of seeing David pay for his crimes, kept me going, fueling my determination and pushing me forward. The day they tried to end me, I exposed the truth. The news broke like a thunderclap. David's office was raided by federal agents, his company's assets were frozen, and he was taken into custody. The headlines screamed his name, branding him a criminal, a fraudster, a thief.
The same lawyer who had smiled as he confessed his betrayal was now scrambling to distance himself, issuing statements denying any knowledge of David's illicit activities. Tiffany, his mistress, disappeared from social media, her profile vanishing into the digital ether, erasing all traces of their lavish lifestyle. The empire he had built, the life he had stolen from me, was crumbling before my eyes. But it wasn't enough. Seeing him in handcuffs, reading about his downfall, didn't bring me the satisfaction I had expected. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, demanding more than just financial ruin. I wanted him to suffer, to feel the same pain I had felt, to understand the devastation he had caused. Then it hit me. His daughter, Emily.
And I knew it would wound David deeply to see the disappointment and disillusionment in his daughter's eyes. I began to gather information about Emily, learning about her school, her friends, her hobbies. I discovered that she was a talented artist with a passion for painting. I also learned that she was struggling in school, particularly in math. An idea began to form in my mind. I would offer to tutor her in math, to build a relationship with her, to gain her trust. And then, when the time was right, I would reveal the truth about her father. It was a risky plan, fraught with potential pitfalls, but I was willing to take the risk. I contacted Emily's mother, David's ex-wife, and introduced myself as a former math teacher with a passion for helping students succeed. I offered to tutor Emily for free, explaining that I had recently moved to town and was looking for ways to get involved in the community. Emily's mother was hesitant at first, but after checking my references and verifying my credentials, she agreed to let me meet with Emily. The first meeting was awkward. Emily was shy and withdrawn, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of being tutored by a stranger. But I was patient and persistent, gradually building a rapport with her. I focused on her strengths, praising her artistic talent, and encouraging her to use her creativity to approach math problems in new and innovative ways. Slowly, she began to open up, sharing her fears and insecurities with me. She told me about her father, how much she loved him, and how proud she was of his success. I listened patiently, biting my tongue, resisting the urge to reveal the truth. I knew I had to wait for the right moment, to build a foundation of trust before dropping the bomb. As the weeks passed, Emily's math grades improved, and our bond deepened. She started confiding in me about her personal life, sharing her dreams and aspirations. I became her confidant, her mentor, her friend. And then, one day, she asked me about my past, about why I had left my previous job and moved to this small town. It was the opening I had been waiting for. I took a deep breath, steeled my nerves, and began to tell her the truth. I started slowly, carefully choosing my words, explaining that I had once been married to her father. I watched her face as I spoke, her expression shifting from curiosity to confusion to disbelief. I told her about the betrayal, the embezzlement, the lies. I showed her the evidence, the financial records, the news articles, the court documents. She stared at the documents in stunned silence, her eyes wide with shock and horror. When I finished, she burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably.
I held her in my arms, comforting her, letting her grieve. She pulled away, her eyes filled with anger and betrayal. "How could he do this?" she cried. "How could he lie to me?" I didn't have an answer. I simply held her again, letting her cry it out.
After a while, she calmed down, her sobs subsiding into sniffles. She looked at me, her eyes searching for answers. "Is it true?" she asked. "Is all of it true?" I nodded sadly. "I'm afraid so," I said. "I know it's hard to believe, but it's all true." She stood up, her legs shaky, her face pale. "I need to go," she said. "I need to think." I let her leave, knowing that she needed time to process what she had learned. I watched her walk away, my heart aching for her. I knew I had done the right thing, that she deserved to know the truth. But I also knew that I had shattered her world, that I had inflicted a deep wound that would take a long time to heal. And a part of me wondered if I had gone too far, if I had crossed a line that I could never uncross. The next day, I received a phone call from David. He was furious. He accused me of poisoning his daughter against him, of trying to ruin his life. I listened silently, letting him vent his anger. When he finally ran out of steam, I spoke. "You did this to yourself, David," I said. "You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." He cursed me, threatened me, vowed to make me pay. But I wasn't afraid. I had already won. I had exposed his crimes, ruined his reputation, and shattered his relationship with his daughter. There was nothing more he could do to hurt me. I hung up the phone, feeling a sense of closure, a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. The anger was still there, but it was no longer consuming me. It had been replaced by a sense of satisfaction, a sense of justice served. I had finally gotten my revenge. The phone rang again. It was the news reporter. "We're ready to go public with the story," he said. "We've confirmed everything, and we have sources inside the company who are willing to talk." "Good," I said. "It's time for the world to know the truth." "There's just one thing," the reporter said. "We need a photo of you. We want to put a face to the story." My blood ran cold. This was it, the moment of truth. If I revealed my identity, I would be exposing myself to potential danger. David and his allies would stop at nothing to silence me. But if I remained anonymous, the story wouldn't have the same impact. It would be just another faceless accusation, easily dismissed by David and his supporters. I hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks and the rewards. Then I made my decision. "I'll do it," I said. "I'll give you a photo." The photo was taken. A stark, unsmiling portrait, the eyes reflecting a life rebuilt from ashes. It ran alongside the headline, "Local Woman Exposes Multi-million-dollar Fraud, Bringing Down Corporate Titan." My name was there, unmasked, next to a detailed account of David's crimes, the lawyer's complicity, and the devastation they had wrought upon my life. The article went viral. The internet exploded with outrage. David became a pariah. His business associates abandoned him. His friends disowned him. His world, once glittering with wealth and power, turned to dust. I watched it all unfold, a ghost in the machine, finally visible. The SEC investigation widened, ensnaring others who had benefited from David's schemes. The lawyer, facing disbarment and possible criminal charges, attempted to cut a deal, offering to testify against David in exchange for immunity. Tiffany, desperate to salvage what was left of her reputation, gave a tearful interview, claiming she had been an innocent victim, unaware of David's illegal activities. No one believed her. The crimson stain of David's corruption had tainted everyone around him. His daughter, Emily, initially refused to speak to him. The shame and betrayal were too much to bear. But after a few weeks, she relented, visiting him in jail. I don't know what they said to each other, but I saw a change in her afterward. The anger was still there, but it was tempered with a flicker of compassion. She understood that her father was a flawed human being, capable of both great love and great cruelty. The criminal trial was a circus. The courtroom was packed with reporters, onlookers, and victims of David's fraud, all eager to witness his downfall. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, meticulously documenting his crimes.
The hidden camera footage from the restaurant was played for the jury, capturing his arrogant confession in excruciating detail. David's defense was pathetic. He claimed he had been misunderstood, that his actions had been taken out of context. The jury didn't buy it. After deliberating for only a few hours, they returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 20 years in prison. As he was led away in handcuffs, he looked at me, his eyes filled with hatred and despair. I met his gaze, unflinching. There was no triumph in my heart, only a cold, hard sense of justice. He had tried to destroy me, and he had failed. I had survived, and I had exposed him for the monster he was. He lost everything. I just smiled.
The years passed. David remained in prison, a shadow of his former self. His empire crumbled, his wealth vanished. His name became synonymous with shame and disgrace. I rebuilt my life, slowly but surely. I started a new business, focusing on ethical investments and social responsibility. I surrounded myself with good people, people I could trust. I never forgot what had happened, but I refused to let it define me. I learned to forgive, but I never forgot. Emily eventually forgave her father, visiting him regularly in prison. She became an advocate for victims of white-collar crime, using her experience to help others who had been hurt by fraud and corruption. She never fully reconciled with me, but she understood why I had done what I did. One day, I received a letter from David. He was dying. He asked to see me. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse, to let him fade away in obscurity. But another part of me knew that I needed to face him one last time, to find closure. I went to the prison. He was frail and weak, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. He apologized for everything he had done, for the pain he had caused me, for the life he had stolen from me. I listened in silence. When he finished, I spoke. "I forgive you, David," I said, "but I will never forget." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. He reached out and took my hand. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." He passed away a few days later. I attended his funeral. Emily was there, along with a handful of other mourners. As I stood by his grave, I felt a sense of finality, a sense of completion. The cycle of revenge was over. The pain was still there, but it was no longer all-consuming. It had been replaced by a sense of peace, a sense of acceptance. Revenge isn't sweet. It's necessary. It's a primal instinct, a desperate attempt to right a wrong, to reclaim what has been stolen. It can consume you, destroy you, turn you into the very thing you hate. But sometimes it's the only way to survive. It was for me. It gave me the strength to keep going, to fight back, to expose the truth. It wasn't easy. It cost me everything. But in the end, it was worth it. I reclaimed my life. I found my peace. I got my justice. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.